Happy holidays, folks. We're counting down the 14 days until Christmas. I go by the name of, let's get into this.
Play the intro.
I go by the name of Lord. Let's serve you some whiskey. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. We're back again. Another episode, another day. We're almost there. We're almost there. We're almost there. Yeah, so for today, I was thinking about a whiskey that I had that was a finishing type cask whiskey, or the cask had something else in it previously before the bourbon was in it. And what other than my favorite, I guess you would call it a condiment, than a honey finishing barrel. So the bottle for today is none other than a Nulu bourbon finished in a honey barrel, or finished in honey barrels, more than one plural. Oh yeah. And if anybody cares, this is 116 proof, and it rested in that barrel that used to have honey in it for 3 months. So yeah. Now, I already know how people feel about Nulu. We already know what it is. Let's go ahead and clear that out right now. Yes, it's MGP whiskey. It's not wrong with MGP, I promise you. It's nothing wrong. But me personally, this was one of the first kind of like whiskeys or bourbons that I had that actually was finished in a cask that had something else in it previously, and I'll be honest, I enjoyed it a lot. So yeah, so I already went ahead and poured it up here. So now, for today, I'm just gonna mostly talk about why and how, if you wanted to buy a whiskey or bourbon finished in another cask or barrel, what you should look for. Me, I look for honey because I like honey. Speaking of which, one second. The world's shortest review, you ready? Tastes like honey all day long. Not synthetic honey though. This is nowhere near how Jack honey is. Those are night and day. This is the real deal, Holyfield. But this is the honey episode. One second. So, went ahead and got some honey here. Wow. This is pure honey, straight from Australia. Raw honey. So barrels that were finished in something else and then dumped and then whiskey put back to it. Let's talk about it. Now, historically, I'm not going to give you a deep history lesson, or barrels in general, were always used in the previous past to store things on long journeys and excursions. They've stored wine in them, they've stored food, they've stored grains in them, and so on and so on and so on. So today, obviously, we are still distilling whiskey and we are storing those things in it. However, people are still barrel aging coffees. Some people barrel age cigars, tobaccos. Some Tabasco is another great example. So some people are obviously aging beers and finishing beers in bourbon casks. Hell, my favorite is the Bourbon County ones. They got some new ones out for this year. Be looking out for reviews soon. I just picked one up recently. Ooh, yeah. So many barrels. But for me, how I came across this was, I like honey. No pun intended, I like honey. And I saw this, and yeah, I would admit it was a pretty, and when I tried it, was it kind of, worth it? Maybe no, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, with that said and done, I have tried various different distilleries that have honey, finish type offerings or whatever. I personally like Nulu. I didn't care for Starlight, not bashing Starlight, but it was, no pun intended, very light. Whereas I feel the Nulu is a little more thicker, crazy viscosity you felt with the honey, and it had a little more heat for a little more intense hug type vibe. So that's why I personally like Nulu. Now with that said, my best advice, if you wanted to find a bourbon or rye or any other kind of whiskey finished in another type of barrel, is think about your palate and what you naturally gravitate to the most outside of whiskey. Me, I love honey, obviously. So I'm always looking for a honey barrel per se. Not necessarily a sweet honey barrel, like bourbon turns honey barrel, but like a barrel that had honey in it and was dumped and whiskey was put in it. Now, there's other ones I like, other people don't like. I like Amarana finished cask. People don't like it. People don't like the Cinnamon Toast Crunch vibe. I personally like Amarana. is pretty good. I got a few that I personally like that are super dope. However, if you are into wine, there's a bunch of different different finishes for like a lot of bourbon that are really good. And then same with rye. I feel like the rye sometimes hold up a little bit more than the bourbon in my opinion. So that might be another vibe you can check out. I know Barrel Seagrass does a great job with kind of crazy complex blending or whatever. So you're gonna get like multiple barrels in one. Whereas like other distilleries you look at, they might have like, oh, this was finished in a Chardonnay cask, or this was finished in like a cognac or brandy or whatever. So you just gotta honestly find your vibe, you know. But I would say this much, these are a little bit than like the standard offerings, only because they obviously have to pay for those casks. You know, a lot of times if the cask wasn't originally used for bourbon and is used for something else, they are buying it from like secondhand sellers and things like that. So that's something you got to take into account, and the cost is gonna be a little more than normal offer. Now as I'm filming this, I'm thinking about other ones that I do have that I like. I have some that are finished in like Pedro or Hermitas cask. Those are really nice. I think I have one that was like a cask from like 1943, and like the notes on that is crazy. I might do a review on that one, maybe top of the year, maybe my first review. That one is like really nice. And then obviously a lot of those like cigar malts, the cigar blends, you know, shout out to Joseph Magnus. Those are finished in like 3 types of casks. Old Elk actually does a great job too in a lot of their finishing cask series I personally like. Barrel Seagrass, as I mentioned, is another one. I'm trying to think who else. There's just a bunch. You just gotta kind of like find your vibe. They are tricky. However, I would say this much: if you are in, you know, your journey where you like to introduce friends and things like that into whiskey who might not like whiskey, I feel sometimes the finishing cask is a great introduction to get your friends into it. I had a party before, and I mentioned this before a few episodes ago, where I bought a bunch of different whiskeys out, and this was one of the ones I bought out and let people try it, and like people really liked it. Why? Because it tastes like honey. It literally tastes like if you took like, I don't know, any kind of like sweet candy you can think of with like cinnamon and sugar and dipped it in honey and gave it to somebody. That's what that tastes like. So people enjoyed it, and it doesn't necessarily burn out your palate because you're not thinking about it, and it's still super overly sweet, so it kind of like masks all like the kind of like tannics that, you know, usually would be on like the bourbon and like kind of like the harsh notes and things like that. For some people maybe turned up who don't used to, you know, drinking bourbon. So are there bad finishing casks? I wouldn't necessarily call them bad. That's just not my personal cup of tea on my palate. There's some I have that are finished in wine casks that are just like I do not like them at all. They're here if anybody wants to try them. Whenever people come over, gladly put them out, and then you can try them. But other than that, I don't necessarily lean towards them, and I stay away from them. It's one of those things like you buy once and you don't like it, you're like, I'm never doing that again. So yeah. So what I recommend, the Nulu bourbon finished in honey barrels. Yeah, hell yeah. If you are into honey, now I admit, yes, like I mentioned, there is a pretty premium for that. You could probably honestly get 4 bottles for the price I paid for that one. Is it worth it? No, but to me it was whatever. Now I would just say this much: you got to kind of find your vibe. Like I said, there's a bunch of different barrels that you can think they were finished. You just got to kind of find one and hope like hell you like it, because if not, then it is what it is, and it's just sitting on your shelf until a friend comes over. So yeah, that's my recommendations. Try it out, do you, and hope for the best. So let me know in the comments 1 or 2 things. 1, do you have any in your collection of any whiskey, could be bourbon, could be scotch, could be rye, that are finished, any barrels that you personally like? Or 2, has there been like any pours that you tried at a bar that was like finished as something that you thoroughly enjoyed that you kind of like hope to pick up one day? Let me know. So if you're liking this holiday episode, go ahead, give me a good old like, comment, and subscribe. Pow. Oh yeah. And like we always say at this time, folks, cheers, salute, sante, Kobe, and all that jazz.